Hello chaps and chappets, and welcome to another Board Games That Everybody Should... A video series where I take a board game, I show you how it's played, and then I give you not one, but two reviews. The first review is a technical review pointing out all the mechanisms and how they work together, and also the components and what you're paying for in the game. And then I give you a personal review, pointing out whether I like it or not, if it's my cup of tea. And you can take from those two reviews what you want, and you can even mash them together and say, okay, that's an overall score of that, which means it's that. In this video, I'm going to be looking at this game called Berkey's Babble Time. No, actually, it's actually called Paper Tales. This is a game which sees players living out 2 centuries in a fairy tale story world. You're going to be building your own fairy tale village and populating it with fairy tale characters and heroes and creatures, and fighting other players' fairy tale characters, creatures and heroes in their little villages. And you'll be doing this in a very, very short time, even though it's like 2 centuries. So interesting, isn't it? Let's go to the credits and let's go to the table. In the middle of the board, you'll put the little scoreboard, and you'll take the round tracker and place it on number 1. This round tracker tells you which way round you will pass your cards on the round itself. Each player will then take a score token and a reference card of their colour. They'll also start with 3 gold pieces, and they will take the 5 cards, which are the 5 different buildings that they can build during the course of the game. Of course, you will add your score token to the score track at 0. You'll then take the large deck of characters and creature cards and give them a good old shuffle. You're now ready to play. The game will take place over 4 rounds, and in each round there will be 6 phases. The first phase is the recruitment phase. In this phase, one player will take the deck of creature and character cards and deal 5 cards to each player. Then each player will start recruiting, drafting cards. You'll be choosing one of these cards that you wish to keep and placing it face down in front of yourself, and then pass the remaining 4 cards to the player on your left. The player on your right will be doing the same thing, so you'll recuperate 4 cards from that player. You will then do the same thing again. You will take one of these cards, place it face down in front of you to keep it. You can at any time look at these cards and remember what powers are there, and then you will pass them on. You will continue to do this until you're down to your last card, and you will pass your last card on, and in the end you will collect that 5th card from the other player on the right. And then you'll finish up with 5 cards. That is your recruitment. Now each round of this will be a little bit different depending on which round it is, because you'll either be passing cards to the left or you'll be passing cards to the right. Also, in a 2-player game, you will start with 9 cards. And each round you will recruit 1 by placing it face down in front of yourself, but you will also be discarding 1 from the hand before passing it to the other player. And so it'll be this each time. You recruit 1, you discard 1, you pass. Let's talk quickly about the anatomy of the characters and creatures in the game. What you have at the top here is the value of them to deploy them into your kingdom. So after you've recruited them, to have them active in your kingdom, you're going to need to pay the cost in gold as marked on the top left there. The symbol on the top right of the card tells you how many of these cards, characters, creatures are actually in the deck. So as you'll see, the miner here, there's going to be 3 of them in the deck. This big red shielded number is the strength of this character or creature. This is how much force they are going to apply in combat when they go into a fight. And then at the bottom you have the special power. Now this here, the number 2, tells you which phase this power comes into effect. So here for the Time Master, on phase 2, which is the deployment phase, when you reveal, you will activate this power. And here on phase 6, you will get 3 points when the sculpture dies. And here is phase 3, you will get a victory point extra whenever you win a war. Some of the characters don't have a power, they just give you a resource. So bear in mind what resources you're going to need and what powers you are going to need. All players should now have 5 cards in their hand, and they may have 1 card saved over from a previous round. Players will now deploy a 2x2 grid of characters as they see fit. These cards will be placed face down. If there is a character already existing in the space that you wish to deploy your new unit, you can freely discard that character. If in a previous round you've built a building level 2, this will give you the ability to add an extra card to the front row. Once all players are finished with the deployment, you reveal all cards that are face down, paying the recruitment cost as indicated in the top left hand corner. If you are unable to pay the recruitment cost of a character or creature, that character or creature will be immediately discarded. And again, remember, if one of these creatures or characters has a flip ability which happens in this phase, phase 2, make sure that you apply it. If you have any cards left over in your hand, you may keep one and place it underneath your reference card. If you already have a card on your reference card, you may discard that. Now, if you have any cards left over in your hand, you will place these into a discard pile in the middle of the table. And now you're ready for war. Yes, phase 3 is war. You will be having combat with your neighbors left and right. You'll need to add up the total force of your attack from the cards in the front row. Don't forget to apply any powers from characters and creatures that have powers that activate on this phase. You then compare this force of attack with the player on your left. If it is equal or higher, you will gain 3 points. And then you will do the same to the player on your right. Again, if you are equal or higher than their strength, you get 3 points. Then we move to phase 4. Phase 4 is income. Each player will automatically gain 2 gold from the pool. And then they will gain any gold granted to them by the characters and creatures in their kingdom, and also any buildings that they have built. In phase 5, you can construct a building to add to your kingdom. Mind you, you can only do this once. You can either construct a building or upgrade a building. And again, don't forget that in the construction phase, you can use any of the construction phase powers from any of your creatures and characters. Before you can build your building, you will have to pay a land cost. The land cost is paying 2 gold for each building that you already have constructed in your kingdom. At the beginning of the game, you'll have no buildings, so there'll be no land cost to pay. To build a building, you're going to need resources, and you can find these on the creatures and characters that you have in your kingdom. You may have also some resources from already constructed buildings. Each resource can only be used once in the construction. If you're constructing a building, you can either just pay the level 1 cost and place the card on its level 1 face, or you can build it directly as a level 2 building, paying both the level 1 cost and the level 2 cost. Again, you could just upgrade one building by just paying the level 2 cost and then flip the card over. Finally, we have phase 6, which is aging. All your characters and creatures will get older. If any of your creatures or characters have an age token on them, they will die unless they have a special ability which lets them live a bit longer. Any dead creatures or characters are removed from your kingdom as well as their tokens. And then you'll place an age token on all the characters and creatures that are remaining. Once this is done, you'll move the round marker to the next round. And then you'll commence the 6 phases all over again. After the 4th round, you'll add any victory points from buildings that you've constructed to your final score. And then you'll see that the player with the highest score is the fairest fairy teller in the land. So let's start off the review with the technical side. What are you getting in the box? Now the components are pretty basic because this is basically a card game. So therefore you have some good quality standard cards and some chunky chips, and then just these plain old wooden tokens for scoring. They could have been something thematic, or they could have just been smaller, tiny cubes. The artwork is a bit peculiar. You might like it, you might not like it, but it ties in with the theme of this is a world of fairy tales, and they kind of look like illustrations from a children's fairy tale book. The game is very clean. It could have had resources and tokens for the other 3 resources in the game, but it didn't do. It just kept them simple on the cards. And also the iconography. The iconography is simple and it's clean and it works. Although it could have done with some more colors in the palette to differentiate a few of the phases in the game. The rulebook is compact, but it explains the rules very, very well with good examples. Once you've read the rulebook, you won't need it anymore because the game is very simple to learn. And the only thing you'll probably need is the reference card to remind you how to play the game. And now the mechanisms of the game. It's a drafting game of cards, very much in the same vein as Seven Wonders. In regards to the drafting, there is quite a number of different cards in the deck with different powers of the different characters and creatures in the kingdom. And this recruitment phase of putting creatures into your kingdom is kind of thematic in the sense that it is you are populating your kingdom. Some of your characters will go off to war, some of your characters will be working on other jobs, giving you resources or giving you powers or helping another character in some kind of vein or other. And then eventually they die off and they leave their legacy for the other characters that you recruit on the next phase and on the next phase. And again, with all the different characters, there are lots of different roads that you can go down. There are the 2 main principles of scoring points by winning wars or by building buildings and scoring them at the end of the game. And then you have all of these different characters which are going to do something to help either one way or another way, or maybe something completely different. You may just collect ore. And then again, the ore can be transformed into points, the meat can be transferred into points, everything can be transferred into points, even dying. Because of the amount of characters in the game, your first couple of games are going to be a struggle because you don't know how the combinations are going to work with one another. There is no easy way entry into this game. You've got to learn as you play, and the more you play, the better you will get at the game. The turns are very simple, and because they're simultaneous, the game will move smoothly and at quite a pace. Even with 5 players, you'll churn out a game in about 30 to 40 minutes. In a 2-player game, you're looking at about 20 to 30 minutes. The positioning of your characters can be important, whether they're going to be fighting in a battle or whether they're going to be helping someone back up. And again, whether they die and they leave a space in the right place for you to recruit this other character. You can't move them around, you can't do anything, you just have to, use your kingdom to the best of your ability. So my technical score is going to be an 8 out of 10. Now, as I said, the components are pretty basic, but this is basically a micro game, epic style, because it is basically this one deck of cards. And so you could make this like a travel version. So the things that bring that score down were the fact that the components are not that interesting, but at the same time the gameplay is very interesting, so that brings the score up, and again it's automatically replayable because of the amount of different cards in the deck. And now onto the fun part of the video where I tell you how I feel about this game. Paper Tales is a board game that everybody could make their own fairy tales about. It's light, it's quick, it's compact, and you'll live out several generations of fairy tale adventures. This game is easily a Seven Wonders killer. I don't like Seven Wonders. I'm not saying that this game doesn't suffer from the same problems as Seven Wonders, it's just shorter, quicker, and a little bit more lighter and fun. Of course, yeah, there's this whole thing of if you don't know the cards, you don't know how this works with that, and it's a case of experimenting. And as I said, you're going to have a learning curve, and players that have played this a lot of times will easily beat someone who's not played it very much. The whole idea of creating a kingdom where you will put like a lumberjack in the forest to cut trees and then get a troll to go out and fight your battles for you is an interesting one. And then when they shuffle off their mortal coil, you're kind of like sad because they were doing something really good for you, and all of a sudden you've got a hand of cards which are not as good because you couldn't draft any better ones. And so you've got to rethink your kingdom and how it's going to work and how this person is going to interact with this person. There's so many little combinations of the buildings and the characters that can help you get to where you want to go and help you climb that score track pretty quickly. But you may find another turn that you're stumped because your strategy is like, okay, yeah, I was doing this, but now I can't do that because these cards won't let me. So what am I going to do? And so you'll have to adapt. And that's the fun part. You're always having to think. And again, you're not always just thinking about your kingdom. You're thinking about these kingdoms to the left and the right of you. You might be even thinking about the kingdom which is on the opposite side of the table of you. So there's a good deal of interactivity in the game, which is something which makes the game fun and light. And again, you can make up some kind of like stories and role play a bit about your characters that you've got in your kingdom. Do you remember that time when your knight in Leviathan took on my time master and blacksmith? Oh wow, what a battle that was. The game does move at a really good pace unless you have someone who's taking their time and really thinking about what cards they're going to keep. The idea of having one card left over from each round is also very nice, because you might find that in your first hand there's this really powerful card and you think, well, I know what, it's the only one in the deck. I'm going to keep that one and I'm going to build my strategy around that. Or you might just keep a card there just to annoy the player on your left, because you know that they're going for meat because their Cerberuses need meat to be stronger in battle. The fact that there are restrictions on the number of characters that you can put into your village, and then the fact that they die, and the fact that you are going to have to pay a lot of money if you want to have lots of buildings in your kingdom. It's a nice kind of like containment field for the game. It's restrictive, but not too restrictive. As I said earlier, the icons really help the game move along, as well as the reference card. But there will be times when you will overlook a power on a card because you forgot to activate it at a certain phase. And if your friends are like nice and generous and they say, well, yeah, go and collect that money anyway, it doesn't matter. We're on phase 5, but you can collect that money from phase 3. Yes, I'm a bit disappointed with the art, and yes, I'm a bit disappointed with the components. You know, the score tokens could have been books or something. I don't know, but you know, I've only just noticed by looking at the scoreboard that it is actually, if you look in the background, it's a library behind, but you can hardly see it behind the score track itself, and the score track is made out of what I believe is pieces of paper. This is a nice family style game where the scoring is happening during the course of the game and not at the end like in Seven Wonders, where you're going to have like 10-15 minutes waiting for the scores to be totted up until you find out if you won or lost, and you probably lost if you're like me. This game is quick, it's fun, it's interesting, and it's small. It could have been in a smaller box because it is quite a small, compact card game. And even though it's small, it does have an epic feel because you're like living 4 generations of creatures and people in a fairy tale land. So my BGG rating for this game, Paper Tales, is also an 8 out of 10 because it is quite an enjoyable game. It's not a game that I'm going to go to all the time, but if I've got 5 people and, you know, 30 minutes to kill, this is a lovely kind of nice, simple card game to teach. It's very easy to teach. You just follow the instructions on the reference card and you just go, okay, it's this, you do this, you do this. The game is in how everything interacts with each other, which is what I really like. So combining my technical score and my BGG score of 8 out of 10, you'll have an overall score of 8 out of 10. Haha, surprise. So there you have it, Paper Tales. Is it a game for your collection? Is it a story that you want to tell your kids? I'll leave that up to you to decide, because you don't have to own every single board game out there. You just need to own a few good ones. Or maybe put some on your wall. Yeah. So I'll say thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you know someone that might be interested in this game, share this video with them. And if you want to help decorate my wall, send me a board game. Yeah. But if you really want help, you can go to my Patreon and donate there. Board Games Everybody Should. And even get yourself entered into my monthly prize draw, or maybe just pick up yourself some promos. So until next time, I'll say ciao for now, and I will wish you the best. And remember, you need to play nicely with each other, because that's how Little Red Riding Hood was able to take out the architect. Yes, she killed him dead.
Just sitting at the table next to Felicia would be quite nice. Wouldn't it be good? I got some board games.